What happened? Hey, guys. I got kicked off for some reason. Everybody still there? Still there? Check 1, 2. Check in. Sound off if you can hear me. I'm back. Okay, cool. My whole screen went for a second, so I don't know what happened. Okay, so there'll be 2 links to the show today. So anyway, country did evolve from gospel, some of it. That's true. Hey, Howard, you're here. Right on, Howard. There's definitely a lot of gospel tradition in country. That's right. I think the initial, but even gospel's a American form of music. They don't sing gospel in Europe. You go to a Lutheran church in Germany, there's nobody jumping around singing and dancing. Or a Church of England or a Catholic church in Europe. It's a U.S. tradition. I love this quote. Ignore the blues at your own peril, a very wise old road dog once told me. He's still working. That's right. Yeah, that's right, Howard. So, anyway, that was the summation of last week's show. But a lot of people misinterpreted it as me like poo-pooing rock and roll. And one guy said, this is an old man rant, Dan. And, fair enough. I could see how you interpreted it that way. I certainly didn't mean it that way. What I was trying to say was there's a lot of life left in rock and roll. And it doesn't have to sound like the rock and roll of the past. I don't care if it does or not. I'm really okay with new forms of rock and roll, even though I am 47 years old. I've gotten a little narrower in my acceptance of stuff, and it does sometimes take me longer to get comfortable with things than it did when I was a teenager or in my 20s. And, you saw the comment. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's not what I mean at all. I mean, Dead Sarah, who I know they're one of my customers, so it sounds like I'm pumping them, but I just happen to know their music really well because we spend time with them. Dead Sarah doesn't sound like anything I've heard before, and they're fantastic. And, they have all the elements that I think should be mainstream. They're both very attractive girls. Neither of them are crazy. They present very well. They're very articulate, intelligent kids. Their music is actually danceable, half of it. I mean, it moves. And their lyrics aren't particularly offensive or anything. I mean, they're sometimes pissed off, but they're not particularly out of the mainstream. But the record companies don't feel great pumping them because it's rock and roll. You're going to see Dead Sarah tomorrow night too. Yeah, they're on Epic for a new record. That's right. Bruno Mars is great, I think. I really like Bruno Mars. I mean, they're playing the daylights out of that one song right now, which is really stupid. They're killing him. Yeah, I should have bought you flowers. They already licensed it to The Voice. Some guy sang it on The Voice last night. It's like, dude, it's all about this quick money thing. So anyway, so I just wanted to make it clear, like, I love rock and roll. I like new rock and roll. I think there's a lot of good new rock and roll out there. I don't see a lot of classic bands being made right now, though, because it doesn't get played on the radio. Part of the reason the Rolling Stones and the Beatles were so influential was they just were on the radio 24/7, starting in 1964 until 1985. Yeah, there's a ton of great bands. You guys can list. There's a lot of them. Yeah, Anita, I'm going to have to talk to you about the Taylor Swift Hanson thing. Bruno Mars is great, but Clutch, I know Clutch. Those guys throw down. A drummer is insane. You love Hanson. Is that because you live in Oklahoma? Does anyone still listen to the radio? That's a good question. I think a lot of people do in their cars. Yeah, that's a fair point, Nick. Maybe I'm saying the radio is the general media, like the main delivery. Kids listen to the radio a lot, I think, because a lot of them don't have the technology. I certainly do in my car all the time. Giants game starts soon. Yeah, in my car. Yeah, I live in LA, so I'm in my car a lot. Yeah, there is a lot of that. The bands that really. Yeah, Grace Potter's great. Hey, someone's on here from Facebook. Okay, really quick, I want to give a big hand to Hans, who's on here, who showed up Saturday, and Howard Johnson at the Operation Progress barbecue event at Silver Spurs Riding Club in Glendale on Saturday. I'm very, very grateful for you guys, your assistance and support, and everything was just fantastic. And I actually got to sit down and play a little music with Howard, not nearly enough. But, and Howard sings his butt off. I just got to tell you, this guy's got a voice. Oh my God. And, so thank you guys. I think you got a sense of how much fun it is and how cool those little kids are. And, yeah, we cooked a lot of food. I think I cooked 50 pounds of meat. And, there you are, Hans. Well, yeah, and it was lovely to meet your wife, both you guys, both your wives. And we had fun. And doing it again on Saturday if you want to come by. It won't be as big as the one. That was the big one. That's why I reached out for help, because we had the parents there. But we cooked chicken, we cooked pork chops, we cooked burgers and dogs, we cooked salmon and tilapia and potatoes and asparagus and peppers and onions and corn in the cob, corn in the husk. Yes, lots of animals died making this barbecue, but they led a healthy, productive life with a purpose. And it was really cool. The kids all had a great time. They were very proud to show off for their parents. And I had a great time. So thank you guys very, very much. Hans, I don't even know your last name, man. Yeah, we need to get some pictures up. I didn't take any pictures, but I'm sure, remember Mary Ann was taking a lot. Valerie is a Zootin song that Amy Winehouse and Mark Ronson covered. Yeah, that's right. I don't know if we have any. You saw some pictures? Hans Sperling. Thank you, Hans. Yeah, your name's not showing up on the Ustream chat. So anyway, I'm just extremely grateful. Thank you. That was fun. I was there with my cowboy hat on. S. Woodrum. We're getting into the reverb thing. Oh, okay. Let's talk about reverb, because I was talking about that. Okay, real quick before it gets too late. Wendy posted pictures? Oh, okay. Anything from Strymon is good. Okay, let's do reverb really quick, and then I want to read this Dave Grohl quote and see what you guys think. So anyway, again, Howard and Hans, thank you so much. Your wives were fantastic, and I sincerely appreciate you. Reverb pedal. I really, really like the Strymon stuff, and either the Blue Sky or the Flint, they have different sort of vocabulary to them, but and they're expensive. And we had a little discussion about this on the Fans of 65 Amps page, which you guys should visit if you want. They're expensive, but I posted a comment that I really feel is correct. I said, if you're like me, you've probably spent thousands of dollars on pedals that you're not happy with. So I've just sort of resigned myself that it's good just to go ahead and get the one that sounds great and be done with it. You'll actually save money if you do that. It's kind of the cheap versus inexpensive. Oftentimes, just like guitars, just go out and get a good Strat. You'll buy 10 $900 Strats and go, I'll get a better one. Well, you spent $9,000. And you're not happy. Pay now or pay later, Justin Magana. Hi, Justin. I didn't know you were here. Yeah, cheap versus inexpensive. Cheap is usually very expensive. But if you got to have a pedal today and you don't have the money, there's some others. Someone sent me a link to a new company. Let me get it for you. Because he saw the discussion about reverb and he swears by it. And it's Ron Ellis who sent this to me. And I really trust Ron Ellis a lot. And it's called Neunaber. That's how you say it in German. I'm sure it's anglicized to Neunaber or something. It's called The Wet. And let me go. There's a mono version. That's a stereo version. Let me put this up for you. And people seem to really be swearing by this one too. And it's a little more affordable. Let me allow links. And I'm not a big reverb guy, so. TC Hall of Fame is good. Yeah, that's right. Han says, a Les Paul and a good tube amp and you're good. New pedals needed. That's me 99% of the time. I don't really feel the need to grease it up a whole lot. New Neighbor. Okay. Yeah, it's an American company. I think they're here in LA, actually. So... New Neighbor, okay. Carl Martin Headroom is a good reverb. Yeah, I'm an Echo guy. If I use any effects at all, I use Echo. But most of my playing experience amplified has been on stage. And if you're playing in a loud rock and roll band, reverb's just your enemy. It makes your guitar wash out. And it'll also start cycling through the vocal mics. And it's sound man, if you're playing loud. Rob Keeler, hey, when are you making a reverb pedal, Rob? Rob Keeler, one of my favorite pedal manufacturers here on the show. I use his push pedal quite a bit. Keeler is based out of Massachusetts. Are you using a headphone amp for your computer source? I don't know what that means. I have a digital board here. I have a PreSonus Studio Live. That's what I'm using. And it's firewired into my Mac. Check out the Surf Rider. I don't know that. Eventide Space Reverb looks awesome. $400. I tell you, my favorite one that I've heard so far is the Strymons. But you know what? I'm not like the reverb guy. That's sort of like asking Jeff Gordon what his favorite Mercedes is. I don't know. He doesn't drive. He drives NASCAR. Can't play Wicked Game without a bit of reverb. Yeah, that's true. If you're playing that kind of music, you need it. You need it. I'm just saying from my experience, not that it's good or bad or right or wrong or anything, just from my experience, I haven't needed it. And the few times that I've tried to use it when I was playing live, I usually had sound man yelling at me. But I was normally playing, 120 decibels on stage. So can't do a lot with reverb at those volume levels. It is nice when you're sitting around. Yeah, Val McCallum uses it perfectly. You're absolutely right, Anita. No, there's nothing wrong with reverb. Don't get me wrong. Please understand. I'm not against reverb. It's just not my thing, and it does pollute your signal. And what we make is, completely pure signal path. If you want to add reverb to it, you can. But a lot of our customers don't require it. Yes, I hate reverb and rock and roll and puppies and apple pie. I hate all that. What doesn't? What are you asking, Howard? Sorry. How about good pedal range master for non-top boost Vox? The 65 color boost is my favorite. What doesn't effects? I still don't understand the question. Yeah, I mean, when you're playing loud rock and roll, you just can't use a lot of effects. It just washes out on stage. You can't hear it. Turns into a mess. Like, I've gone to see Pollute Your Sound. Yeah, they all do to some extent. That's right. Actually, Fletcher 58. There's also a couple of guys that make great range masters. Yeah, $900 Strats are okay. You just got to pull the pickups out and put a new nut on it and put a better bridge on it and get the frets dressed. And next thing you know, you got a $2,000 Strat when you could have just went and bought a $2,000 Strat. How does trim work versus reverb? Oh, good question. A tremolo is an actual adjustment of the volume. So it goes wow, wow, goes up and down. That's tremolo. It's like going wow, wow. It's, yes, thank you, asked Ken Lee. It jumbles up the vocabulary. Thank you. I needed that assist. Yeah, you need a Callahan bridge. Whereas reverb is actually not an echo, but it's the reverberation of the sound. It keeps carrying on like you're in a large room or in a cave. So a tremolo is the oscillating of the volume. That's all it is. The volume wiggles up and down. It's like someone's taking the knob and just going like this. We do it with an oscillating circuit on a triode, so the volume just goes up and down like this. And if you slow it, it goes up and down. So there you go. Very cool. Talking of Ron Ellis, I do have the Strat pickups, and I haven't put them in yet. I haven't had time. I've had his Strat pickups for like 3 weeks. And I haven't, so you have to just stand by for that. Rob Clute asked, Dan, any thoughts on the quality of Golden Dragon tubes? I've never tried them. Usually those high-end special run tubes from China are something I can't even consider because A, they don't make enough of them, and B, they only make them for a year. And so I design an amp around it, and it gets really popular, and then all of a sudden I don't have tubes for it. So I kind of got bitten by that a couple of times with the Royal Albert using KT77s and the Rocket 88 using KT88s. I understand the Gold Dragon tubes are more of a hi-fi proposition anyway. So hi-fi stuff uses a lot lower voltage than we do. And really cold screen grids. We use really hot screen. Arne Haas talked about them in the previous show with you. I don't remember that. I'm sorry. Anyway, Rob Keeler, nice to see you. What a nice surprise, man. I miss talking to you. I hope you're well. Hope everything's good. And certainly glad Boston made it through all that craziness a couple weeks ago. Blaine says, I have a set of Ron Ellis humbuckers coming in July. Yeah, you're going to flip, man. They're good. They're really, really good. You will be glad you spent the money. Again, it's a cheap versus inexpensive thing. I've spent $10,000 on pickups over the past few decades. And I've only had a few sets that I thought were great. Most of the time I didn't buy what I knew to be great because I didn't want to spend the money. And I've learned that lesson. Does Ron Ellis have a website? I can't remember. I think so. T2ellis.com or something like that. Here, let me look. Doo-doo-doo. He has a Facebook page. And all I get are, man, all the forums are going nuts with him. He's got a Facebook page, which I'll put up here. I spoke to Ron this morning, actually. He's such a gentleman. And a real pleasure to always speak with. My CNC puts your Haas to shame. What are you talking about, Rob? I don't know which ones I got. Ron just made them for me. I think my Strat pickups are 60s ones. I was going for the bigger piano-y sounds. But not high output. I like the lower output stuff, which is the thing, you know. Yeah, there is a big wait time for his pickups, but it's worth it. Just hang out. You'll be fine. I know everything seems like you got to have it right now, but it's okay. Trust me, you're going to get these and you're going to forget about changing pickups. I did. Yeah, there's another guy named Tim White that made pickups that good, and he quit making pickups. He was actually a NASA engineer that lived in Alabama. And that's what's in my red guitar. I'm just kind of like, okay, that guitar's done. Nothing's going to make me displace those pickups. And that's kind of the way I feel about Ron Ellis, which is what's in this yellow guitar. I've got Ron Ellis pickups in there now. No, Frank, I didn't see that list. Yeah, I've played the Seymour Duncan ones with the silver. They sound good. I want to take my 59 Les Paul reissue and get a cap put on so I don't lose the high end when turning the volume down. What do you recommend? Go out on the internet and see what you think. There's a few different ways to do that. You might want to try it. See what you think. It just kind of depends on what you're expecting out of it. Yeah, the 470 picofarad 220K combination there is good. I've seen people use smaller caps than that as well. But that's pretty standard. What caps do you prefer in Strats and Tellys? I'm pretty easy. Most of these I have vintage Spragues. And I bought a bunch of Sprague capacitors like 10 years ago when it wasn't such a big deal. So I've got a bunch of Bumblebees and Black Cats. I just use this value that came with each guitar, Strats, Tellys, and Les Pauls. They sound really good. I don't see it making a huge difference in the guitar, but it definitely helps. Especially if you're trying to get a vintage sound, it makes a difference. For new caps that are out there, I like oil caps in a guitar. It makes it sound very vintage. Sozos work great in a guitar. They're regular standard Sozos. Yeah, that's a good rig, Howard. I like that a lot. But anyway, to answer the question, yeah, I don't know. I don't know WCR caps. Um, Most of these caps are all made in the same 2 or 3 factories in China. The only ones that I know are made in the United States are the Sozos. Those are made on the East Coast. Um, and that seems to, the material used in the US ones seems to make the top end a little better on everything. A little more elegant sounding top end, which is why we're kind of stuck on them. I think the Jupiters are made here in the U.S. Hovland music caps, yeah, those are hi-fi caps, so you don't want to put those in a guitar. Yeah, Howard, it's get the real tone. That's it. You kind of, I use this bad analogy and see if this works for you. So, like, I grew up, breeding bird dogs. We bred Brittany Spaniels who point and retrieve quail. So there were 2 kinds of breeders. There were the people who bred for characteristics, and there were people who bred against characteristics. And the people who were successful were the ones who bred against characteristics. Now let me explain that to you. And this is the way I feel about guitars and amps and everything. It's actually relevant. It's not just more Dan Redneck Missouri talk. Every dog in the world knows how to bark when the doorbell rings. Every dog in the world knows how to chase a rabbit. Every dog in the world knows how to return a ball to you. Every dog in the world knows how to smell something and follow it. Every dog in the world has all those skills. The problem is, you want a dog that focuses on one of those skills. So if you want a dog that's going to hunt birds, you want to give a dog that sees a rabbit run by and goes, eh. You want a dog that when it hears a doorbell, it goes, whatever. You want a dog that when you throw a ball, it says, what am I, a Labrador? No, I don't do that. I'm not a retriever. Right? You want a dog that says, I recognize that smell, and I'm going for it. I'm going to follow that smell until I see the bird. Right? So when you have a guitar and when you have an amp, what I'm going for is a specific thing. And we'll just use this bad analogy that I'm using of hunting quail. I want an amp and a guitar that hunt quail. I don't want an amp that does anything else. And so you have to get rid of everything else. There's a little top end distortion out of there. So you got to have good transformers and good caps. I like a really detailed, articulate mid-range. You got to have certain resistors in certain positions. I like an amp that performs reliably under different conditions. So you have to use really high quality products in the power section. You have to use 1% tolerance heat treated stuff that doesn't drift when it gets hot. I want a certain frequency response out of the tube, so I got to use certain tubes to do that. If I were making an amp that had 8 gain stages and would just go rah, 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 then I could use different stuff, but that's not what I do. So it's the same thing with the guitar. You know, Howard's talking about getting to the real tone. You know, a Les Paul has a sound, and if it's not set up correctly, then you don't hear it. It just sounds like a guitar. Same with a Strat and a Tele. You know, you hear that one Strat and you go, oh, yeah, that's right. And you hear the next Strat and go, because it's not doing the Strat thing. So that's kind of the way I approach it, if that makes sense. So a Hovland music cap, Doug Gilliam brought up, is a great cap for recorded music because it's extremely literal. Guitars were never meant to be literal like that. They're voiced. And so when you put something like a hi-fi cap in your guitar, you lose that voicing. You get it's like kind of like plugging your guitar into the board. You know how it sounds really kind of you lose it. And so getting a $35 hi-fi cap in your guitar, kind of a waste of money. You're going to lose the inherent character that was intended for this guitar because it's just going to get all flattened out with this literal hi-fi capacitor. Oh, okay. Now I didn't know that. So if RS Guitar Works makes something special for them, it's hopefully not a hi-fi cap. They might be making them a good coupling cap. Did I mention pheasant? You really want me to come over, huh, to Indiana? Okay. I'll come over and we'll go hunting. Yeah, every dog can guard your house. Every dog can do whatever. You don't want a bird dog to do that. What pots do you like? I used matched CTS pots because the pots from the factory are wildly different. You might get a 430K pot or a 600K pot when it's supposed to be 500K. So if you get a matched set right around 500, it does make the guitar sound a little better. Like these pots and this, I think are from RS Guitar Works. I've got a Tone Pros bridge on it. Those are Ron Ellis pickups. I had the guitar plecked and then hand dressed. And then I've got a bone nut in it and Tone Pros tuning keys. So it just kind of works. Yeah, the Bourne's pots are really nice. They all sound different. Believe it or not, you put an alpha pot in a guitar, it sounds different than a CTS pot. It's all kind of like what you want. There's no right or wrong, if you like it. If you want to get that sound like my guitars, I can tell you what they are. I don't know if they're necessarily the best. I just like them that way. Yeah, Harris T20. If you different tapers will clean up on different numbers. That's why it's so hard. Even with pots we put in amps, we buy really good pots, and they're not that consistent. Even the best ones are not that consistent. Well, it should clean up when I go to 7, but it doesn't until we're on 5. I'm like, well, that's the nature of gear. They're wildly inconsistent. You just got to be able to get the sound you want. I mean, who cares about the numbers? The numbers, a lot of people have it stuck in their head. Well, the amp should be really dirty on 7. We don't match our pots, King Darko, but we get them pre-screened. Hi Dan, I just got my new producer EL from Vintage Guitar here in Norway. What do you consider the best EL34 tube to put in it? Well, thank you. Congratulations on your new amp. We use an STR tube run from Shiguang that I think sounds amazing in that amp. And I'm not a big fan of Chinese power tubes, but because that thing is low voltage, they'll work great. Are you talking about NOS tubes? Do you want to put NOS tubes in it? Because the tubes that come in it are great. I'd stick with those unless you want to go NOS. Yeah. Let me know what you think. I know Espen Jacobsen. I'm sorry. I should probably speak a little slower if you're not that comfortable. I'm ranting in English, so. Basically, you want to put NOS tubes in it, or do you want to put some new tubes? No, it doesn't really matter, King Darko, on matching the pots in an amp. It doesn't change it. Just the number might be different. But who cares? It's one of those things, like all my guitar experiences from being a working player, I don't give a damn where the knobs are. And it was a real surprise to me when I started this business how people think, well, I have it on 5 and it doesn't sound. So what? Yes, NOS. Okay, Espen. Move it to 6. Does it sound right? Oh, it sounds great, but it should be 5. Okay, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. I apologize. So, NOS tubes. My 2 favorite EL34s in the world are, of course, Mullard's XF2s, which I believe were made from around 64 to 67. I could be wrong. Somebody